Welcome. Today we are going to talk about the Common Agricultural Policy Area Monitoring and how we can use Copernicus, LPIS data and DataCube. You will learn more about exactly what this is shortly. But before we actually start this webinar, we will do some weather reports. I'm going to be your host, and my name is Bente, and I will start by encouraging you to also give a weather report from where you are when you are attending this webinar. But we will show you how it's done by this panel of experts that you will learn more about shortly. Just be patient, but first you will learn how the weather is like where they are. So Gerhard, can you tell us where you are and what the weather is like?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. We are in Austria, in a place called Baden, south of Vienna. The weather is nasty today, rainy days. We hope that it's going to improve over the weekend or for next week when we will have our company excursion and we will be in a sailing boat next weekend. We hope for good weather then.
Sounds exciting. We are happy for rain. The agriculture, I'm sure, is happy for rain. Okay, so Grega, how about you? You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. So yeah, I'm in Ljubljana, south of Austria. So the bad weather from Gerhard is coming our way. So we have rains as well.
There you go. And Aušrius?
Yes, hello everybody. So I'm in Vilnius, Lithuania, and we have about +18, sunny, shining, nice weather.
Ah, you are lucky. Helge?
Yeah, I'm sitting here in Hamburg, and the weather is actually quite variable. So it was cloudy just a couple of minutes ago. Now the sun comes out, but it's quite chilly today.
Quite chilly. Oh, I see. Stefan, how are you?
Hi, I'm in Vienna. It's not too far from Baden. It's only 30 kilometers from where Gerhard is sitting at the moment. But the sun is coming out a bit through the clouds, so maybe the sun comes to Baden soon too.
Yes, crossing fingers for that.
Yeah.
So I'm actually in Norway, so I'm far north, close to Oslo now, and the weather is overcast a little bit. The sun is just getting in there, but we are expecting rain. So good for the agriculture, as I said. And I see here, yeah, let us hear from you, the audience, what the weather is like. Jukka, in Finland, it's in Urjala, it's rainy and 14 degrees. So that's a big difference from last week where we had almost 30 degrees here in Norway. So, okay, now we are going to have, as you see, a panel. We have a panel of 5 speakers. And they will talk about the CAP monitoring, of course, and also some of the technology, including both data and technology to analyze the data, such as the DataCube. Well, actually, the DataCube specifically. Gerhard will tell you more about the detail of the content of this webinar shortly. Before we start, again, as I said, we will like to hear from you. We would like to hear your questions. We would love your comments, and the place you do that is in the chat box. And we will, in between each of the presentations, you can ask questions to the specific presentation that you just heard. And if it's not a too comprehensive question, we will answer them directly. Otherwise, we will answer that in the Q&A that will be at the end of the webinar. We foresee that the presentations will take about 1 hour, and then the questions, the Q&A will last beyond that, depending on how active you are in that part of the webinar. Hello from Bulgaria, from Germany, Kiel, Bulgaria, Dresden, yeah, Croatia. Welcome to all of you. Nice to see you here. Before we now start, you have it already, we can do the tour de table so that you get to learn more about the speakers. So I will start with you, Aušrius. Can you introduce yourself shortly, tell you what you work with them and your background a little bit. Aušrius, did you hear? He seems frozen. Okay, then we take Gerhard. You can go ahead then.
Okay, thank you. Yes, my name is Gerhard Triebnig. I'm a managing director of the company EOX IT Services based in Vienna. We are specialized in serving to institutional users primarily engineering activities and engineering support services in the area of Earth observation. One of our key projects at the moment is together with partners here around the table is the EuroDataCube project, and you will hear about this more, which is an advanced access to Earth observation data for a whole range of applications and the necessary infrastructure that you need to be able to process these large volumes of satellite data that we are facing today. Thank you.
Great. And Grega, how about you? Can you introduce yourself?
So I'm Grega Milcinski. I'm a CEO of Sinergise. Yeah, we are probably most well known for various common agricultural policy systems in Slovenia, Croatia, Macedonia, Montenegro, Turkey, Scotland. I probably forgot some. And Sentinel Hub, which is a cloud-based satellite imagery processing service that we operate for a couple of years, and it's also being used by quite a few paying agencies.
Looking forward to hear more about that as well. So Helge, how about you?
Yes, if I mute myself, I'm Helge Dzierzon. I work for Brockmann Consult here in Hamburg, and at the moment I'm a software engineer, scientific programmer, forester, all sorts of things. And I'm basically responsible at the moment for the geoDB, which I will going to present, and the xcube gen service.
Exciting to hear about what you have to say too later on. And Stefan.
Hello, my name is Stefan Brandt. I'm based close to Vienna, and I work at EOX at the moment. I have developed LPIS, which we will also hear about later, which is a traffic light viewer for machine learning results in the context of CAP monitoring. And at the moment, I'm a geospatial researcher for my master's thesis, which I'm writing at EOX.
Exciting, I'm sure it is. So nice to see that we have both seniors and juniors and everything in between here today. Aušrius, I'm sure we will see him again. He will sort out the technicalities, so you will be introduced to Aušrius later. But I think we can kick it off now. You will, just one more thing I forgot to say, and that is that you we will present a few polls in between, because we would really like to learn more about you and to engage with you. So just a short warning that you will get some very, very short and simple polls. Now, Gerhard, can you tell us about the context and more about what we are going to learn in this webinar? We will turn off our cameras and our microphone while the presenters are doing their presentations, and then we will come back to you afterwards.
Thank you, Bente, with pleasure. Yes, hello, ladies and gentlemen, again from my side. It is my task now to put the agenda of today's webinar into some context, and I'm bringing up here some important terminology. CAP stands for Common Agricultural Policy, defined at the European level. There are 80 paying agencies in Europe, and I'm happy to see that quite many of them are here today in this webinar. Welcome. Also welcome to the participants from other institutions, from industry. Some of them might be contractors to the paying agencies, and welcome also to the researchers community. Altogether, we are facing the challenge that an evolution of a system needs to be built, which we may call the integrated administration and monitoring system. In the first presentation today, Aušrius Kučinskas from the Lithuanian National Paying Agency will present to us the results of an updated survey. He has been asking many paying agencies about where they stand in implementing this advanced monitoring system. Trying to get my next slide on the screen. Now, this picture introduces our topic of today a bit further. On the top, you see that the monitoring system supports the decision-making by paying agencies related to financial claims brought in by farmers. What we show here is a very simplified view, as the system is conceived to become a much wider e-government service for the farmers in the future. The system below needs to manage repositories of satellite observations. I show here Copernicus Sentinel time series data. I also show PlanetScope time stacks, which are a necessity to be used for the so-defined small parcels. On the other side, data are included which define the parcel's geometries. These are the famous data from the Land Parcel Identification System, LPIS, which are maintained by the paying agencies for their individual territories. By the way, more and more paying agencies consider sharing their LPIS data as open government data, and Aušrius will give us some related statistics in his presentation. We are facing big data issues here because longer time series of satellite data, even for smaller territories, easily get into the 10th of terabyte. Also, we are facing a heterogeneous mix of LPIS and satellite data. It is therefore adequate to consider outsourcing of this data management challenge to specialized providers. Let me call them data cube service providers. We are also facing heavy data processing issues related to the artificial intelligence training, model building, and prediction computations. It is therefore advisable to think about performing the intensive computing in the cloud. Grega Milcinski, the second speaker of today, will introduce time series or signals as a service, meaning that the complexity mentioned here can be hidden behind an application programming interface and provided as an industrial offer. Helge Dzierzon will follow with his talk, providing further details about how LPIS data can be shared and provisioned via DataCube services and related APIs. And finally, Stefan will present an open source software solution for implementing the traffic lights function, shown on the top here, required for the mentioned eligibility checks, and finally, for releasing payments to the farmers. To sum up, the presentations will follow will introduce various aspects related to cap area monitoring system and how combining Copernicus and LPIS data in DataCube services and how this can be beneficial. I hope also for your work. With this, I would like now to pass the ball to Grega. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gerhard. That was really a very nice overview of what you're going to learn today. And if you have questions concerning this presentation from Gerhard now, if there are anything you wonder about, please ask that in the chat. I see you are very active. Thank you so much for talking to us. One question I can answer immediately is that the slides will be made available. As long as you have registered here for the webinar, you will get the replay in your inbox later today, actually. It will be immediately recorded and sent to you. Now, the slides, I haven't, just to check, those will be shareable, right? This will be freely available to from all of you. Can you give me a thumbs up? Or, yeah, Helge is very shy behind. A thumbs up there. There you go. You will get the slides, and we will publish it on several platforms. We have this webinar is also an EO for Agri webinar. So, and combined with a Dubrovnik hackathon that is going on in the context of Inspire, the Inspire directive. So there will be several outlets where the slides will be posted. I'm sure you on EOX, maybe you and Synergy also have a possibility to publish the outcome of this webinar on your blogs or whatever. So I recommend that you follow us on Twitter or on Facebook, or if you visit these web pages, and you will get to see the slides. You will be able to download the slides. I will post links to these organizations in the chat, so you can collect them there. So let's see. That's Benjamin, that answered your questions. Antonella, Salomia, those are all members of the EO for Agri, so a special hello to you guys. But we see there are many I saw somebody from JRC here. Pavel, welcome. Vasil from Bulgaria, Oke from Germany. Welcome to all of you. And now we are going to hear about the results from the survey Aušrius. We are very excited to see the results.
Yes, hello. So I'm turning off my camera, sharing the monitor.
Yep.
Do you see?
Yeah, and the height, yes. We see it, perfect.
Yes, so hopefully my internet will work fluently, because now I'm facing some problems, so I'm trying to be very fast. So in 1 year, last year, we made a survey about area monitoring system, and this year we repeated the questions and added the one more question. So the results from 2018. So we got completed surveys from 27 paying agencies from 26 member states, and it was fulfilled with 33 questions. And this year, 2010, we got the answers from 29 paying agencies, 22 member states, and it was with 34 questions. And some insights from the questions that the Sentinel data is currently more often used for execution of on-the-spot checks, but a big progress in 1 year of using Sentinel for LPIS update. 2019, 6 paying agencies, 14. So of paying agencies which answered to us. And also a big progress in providing last year it was 3 paying agencies, and this year 7. Also, one insight that the error rates should decrease in the long run, but increase in the short. So rates. Also, would be preferred to be at 5 or even 1 meter. Also, we see that Sentinel-2 data is widely used by pay agencies. Last year, it was 24 pay agencies, and this year, and nevertheless, a big on data. 2019, 15 paying agencies, and 2020, 23 paying agencies. Also, after the European Commission abandons the commercial VHR or HHR free delivery to member states, paying agencies are planning to use mainly the current nationally acquired orthophoto images, VHR, HHR images acquired directly from the providers, and also Sentinel data. The estimated costs are for area monitoring system are between 1 and 3 million euros. And well, most of the paying agencies are planning that checks by monitoring will substitute regular on-the-spot checks in coming years, but we are still facing difficulties to do it faster. There are some obstacles like small parcels, complex subsidy system with few monitorable eligibility criteria, doubts about the future audits approach, lack of skills, funding, infrastructure, and etc. One of the questions was related with algorithms, and it was, do you outsource the development of the necessary Sentinel algorithms for AMIS? So almost all the paying agencies are outsourcing the development of AMIS, but in another, on the other hand, paying agencies are planned to process the Sentinel algorithm calculations results in-house, mostly, or not decided yet. And compared to 2018 and 20, more paying agencies have tested DIAS. For example, 2018, 4 paying agencies, and 2020, 11. But however, there should be a direct and active communication with DIAS providers, because 13 paying agencies are still planning to test it, and 14 paying agencies are not sure of using it in the long run. And as paying agencies see, the main driver for possible use of DIAS is the cost savings, and that it is faster than in-house. Internal AMIS projects dominate over international ones, as the number of internal projects in 2018 and 12, and so it increased. All the tools and free and open. Though there is still a need of learning how these projects could paying agencies would like to see the European Commission as the main I'm sorry, did you hear me?
We heard, sometimes you were breaking up a lot, and other periods were quite well, and then he's coming back. So you're still with us?
Yes, I am still with us.
Yeah.
Did you see the monitor?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so I don't know where you stopped to hear me.
Just finish you were talking to the last point here.
Okay. 2/3 of the paying agencies would like to see the European Commission as the main provider of all the needed algorithms for AMIS, like crop type detection, grass mowing date, and etc. And this is the most valuable products for paying agencies. As you see, the top 3 are crop identification, grass mowing, crop harvest. Also, there are others like biodiversity, burnt out area. Less is a demand in the market for more than 17 different Copernicus products. Also, publish LPIS and GSAA data as open government data. So almost all are publishing or are planning to publish, and one of them are we, because we are publishing it on mobile application. As you can see on the left side, there are there are declared parcels and declared groups of parcels, and you see on the left the soil erosion layer, on the center wetlands layer, and on the right side it from at least 2018. So that's all from me. You could download the slides after the webinar and could see it through.
Yes. Thank you so much, Aušrius. We had some trouble with your sound in periods, so I have asked our audience to ask questions in the chat so that perhaps it's easier to answer them for you when you have turned off your camera and your screen share, so the sound is better normally because it's a bandwidth issue. But the slides will be made available. Any questions that you can think of? Come with them now. Aušrius, would now you were breaking up a little, so you have to excuse me if you already answered it. Would you say that the general attitude among the payment agencies is that this the data and the technology is regarded as very useful?
Yes, and I've not only like our paying agency, but in the whole Europe, we see that some kind of transitional period to go from the regular on-the-spot checks visits to working on-site on the office. And we see from the results of the survey that now more and more paying agencies is doing it and doing it more. Of course, now it's more like a testing period, but you know, at the certain point, as we see from the survey at 2022, most of the paying agencies are planning to implement it like the whole monitoring system.
Interesting. So this is always a challenge, I think, when you go from something very traditional to make use of new technology. So this is a general challenge in society at large. So it's not too late to ask questions to Aušrius, and this very useful survey. You can do that in the chat, and we can discuss it when we have the Q&A, because you will stay with us, Aušrius, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now we can dive a little bit deeper into the technology, and that's you, Grega, that will start that.
So you should see my screen?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, so that was a very good introduction into my my talk, and I'll not go too much into the technology. I'll try to be a bit more high level, but then Helge will follow up on the technology part. So how I see is that there is quite a bit of a challenge for many paying agencies, as they don't really know how to address this, and I think this survey really nicely showed that. And they are struggling to decide whether they would develop things in-house or whether they would use Sem4Cap, which is a promising open source product that anyone can use. They like to outsource this to the existing supplier, because most of the paying agencies are anyway outsourcing their IT, or to go to someone else, like to just buy a brand new system, because all of these things is so new. Now, many of them are just waiting a bit to see what will come out, but then the time will run out, right? Now, the reason why it's so challenging is that you have these two new approaches that you need to learn, machine learning and cloud processing, that are simply not common in the past with the Common Agricultural Policy. Yet, for those people who are expert in these things, like machine learning and cloud processing, they don't know much about Common Agricultural Policy, and even less so about the local policies from the paying agencies around Europe. Now, this is, kind of how I see the challenges of deciding for one or another solution, right? If you do it in-house, you know everything about the needs, but you don't know enough about the machine learning to implement that. And this is commonly the thing also with existing contractors. And all of this then kind of impacts the time. You don't know how fast it will be possible to develop that. Now, on the other side, if you use the new things like SAM4CAP, you have things that is working, that is well developed in terms of machine learning and cloud experience, and it was focused to the common agricultural policy. Yet it is not fine-tuned for the local conditions, right? And it's because it's a complex system. It's difficult to really understand how much you can customize it to your needs. That being said, it is free and it can be used immediately, so it's kind of a nice offering, right? And a similar issue is with the new contractor. I mean, you have people who are offering things saying they know everything, yet it has not yet been proven. Very few or none of the actual paying agencies have these things full-blown in the production. And also, I mean, when it works in one paying agency, you're not sure whether it will work in your paying agency as well. And all of this, then again, depends on the cost. So it's quite a complicated issue on how to address it. And one of the reasons why I believe that that this is so is because everyone sees that, I mean, most of the people believes that the area monitoring will kind of revolutionize the common agriculture policy. And I believe that this is not really the case, right? I mean, I don't think that we need to replace all the steps that are working now pretty well with the area monitoring, because you can just go, you can just do it as an evolutionary step, right? The paying agencies have already now a well-placed administrative checks process that works for many years and that goes through basically all the data that is available. And if we simply treat the area monitoring, or rather the remote sensing-based products, as yet another input to the administrative checks, then and we place this in the existing environment, then the whole process makes it much more simple. And I believe this is how we should try, at least at the beginning, to split these two processes in part. And then you have this challenges much more clear, right? You can say, okay, I'll do the markers and signals outside. I will outsource this, not algorithms, but really you just ask for the markers and signals as a result. And then I will put these markers and signals in my existing system and work with my existing contractor who's very familiar with local policies to kind of address it in terms of the actual decisions. And I mean, this makes it much less risky because the markers are somehow generic, right? You can make markers, I mean, obviously you need to adjust them to the local conditions because of the climate and agriculture, but in reality, a mowing marker from Spain will work similarly in other countries as well. And you can even split this and you ask for one marker to one contractor and one marker to other and use SAM4CAP for, let's say, a set of markers. But then you treat this as an input, independent input, similarly as we were treating the aerial imagery or satellite imagery in the past. Put it in the system and run the cross-checks with it. How I see this working, right? I mean, basically the only input that is needed by the paying agency is a geospatial aid application, which hopefully will be public in a machine-readable way very soon for just about any paying agency. Now then, you need to know a bit of the phenology from the region so that you adjust a bit to tweak the algorithms a bit. Now, if there are some other data sets like land cover that are available that could improve the results, that's nice, but I mean, these are really nice to have, not must have. And then as Gerhard already mentioned, probably we need to add the VHR imagery or the high resolution imagery to the Sentinel to address the small parcels, but only the small parcels, right? We need to be smart to combine the Sentinel data and the other data sets in order to keep the cost down. And I think that then this makes it really feasible. And the output of such service are then simply markers per polygon. You get for each polygon, let's say a declaration, a crop, or a parcel, you get simply the results for a specific market, like a marker, like the mowing events or the crop type, if you like. And then, in addition to that, you get the vegetation indices time series so that you can kind of interpret what the marker says, so that you can cross-check the marker result, and also parser visualization through time. something along this line, right? I mean, this is what you get as an output, obviously also in machine readable form. You get this kind of, for example, for mowing, you get these red lines that represent when the mowing happened or where likely happened. And then everything else in this chart is just a supplementary information so that you can interpret whether these results are okay. Like you get the information how the other similar parcels in the nearby acted in a similar period, so that you know how much you can trust this marker. And you get for each an individual timestamp, you get the image in various forms, if you like, so that you can simply understand why the algorithms came up with these results. And I mean, in terms of the markers, the crop type was the most wanted one. But I think that also is not really a good approach, because crop type doesn't tell much of a thing, right? It just tells you what is the most probable crop type of a specific parcel. It doesn't tell you whether the parcel was cultivated, whether there was mowing happening, nothing. And plus, the crop type is quite a complex product, right? Which I don't think justifies the value that it brings. If you start with this on the left side, homogeneity, bare soil, ploughing, mowing, I think that you can address most of the measure conditions with that. And then this on the right side, they bring some value, but they are not really the crucial thing. Now, when you have the markers, you can either go through this individually. I mean, administrative checks are usually run on hundreds of thousands or even more parcels, and they do this manually in many countries, right? They check over, I don't know, aerial imagery, whether the parcels still fit. And you could do this with markers in the same way, having this kind of visualizations, and you simply run through that and make a decision, right? But now, alternatively, you can just do the cross-check in the computer system, and with a very simple business rules. I mean, this thing is so simple that can be easily implemented by any local contractor, and it's very much related to the local conditions. So this is why it's so important that you have this local knowledge. And just combining this though, and knowing that this simple business rule will not address all the cases, but I don't know, 80% of them, so that you just have 20% remaining, makes everything much more simple. Now, in terms of the technology behind that, for this to work, you need a database. GeoDB is a very nice solution that will be presented later on, but it can also work with the in-house database if you simply want, for the audit purposes, to have everything in place. And then you have Sentinel Hub providing the Sentinel and PlanetScope analysis ready data. You can visualize the time series for the parcel or the parcels themselves, so you get this kind of out of the box. And what we are working on now, it's not yet available, but it's available in beta, that you actually get markers on demand. So we just need to get the geospatial ad application data, and then you can get either the full results or just individual ones. So to conclude, I really believe that if you approach this system from the point of, let's work with markers as yet another data, and you integrate this in your own system with your own conditions, with existing software, so that it's not a revolution but rather evolution, you can have this ready probably in a year time without much of a risk, because you are not replacing anything, you are just adding new stuff. Now, as mentioned, the marker service is now being in beta mode, so if anyone would like to try it out in beta, you're most welcome, so that we see how it works in other countries. Thank you very much, and I'll conclude here.
Thank you so much, Grega. You did great with respect to time as well. Go ahead and ask questions in the chat to both Grega and Aušrius. Meanwhile, while you are thinking about that, I have a question, and it might reveal my ignorance, but it sounds to me that what you said, Grega, now that you mentioned the markers, the set of markers, that they were slightly different from the result of the survey that Aušrius did. Is that a correct? Aušrius did? Is that the correct observation, or?
They're mostly, I mean, I think all of the markers most of the markers that I had on slide were on that survey as well. The order was not the same, so I believe that we should prioritize them differently, simply to make it easier. we did introduce some new markers that we are testing out, like homogeneity and similarity markers that we believe add quite a bit of value in terms of just understanding the conditions. But in general, like you have this mowing and plowing and crop type, if you like, so all of these are the same.
Yes, but it was the priority that was a little bit different.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, this is our belief, right? It's not the common knowledge. It's just what I believe, what you need to in order to be able to address whether a basic payment scheme is valid or not, and so on.
Great. And Pavel is very satisfied with you mentioning the JRC on the subject.
I mean, JRC is really doing a very good job here because they are setting a guideline, and I think that what I said is not new. Like you could hear all of these things by JRC in last year as well, but I'm not sure that people are listening because everyone is so fancying the crop type, right? And they go and they do the crop type. But in reality, they are not solving the main problem. So yeah, I appreciate JRC's work a lot here.
Yeah, great. So keep the question coming and comments. We also welcome your comments. You don't have to have a question. If you have a piece of information you think that would be interesting for this audience, by all means, please write it in the chat. Now we are going to you, Helge, and hear more about technology.
Thank you, Bente. I'm just trying to share my screen, I guess, which kind of makes sense. Yes. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we see it.
Okay, so thank you very much for having the opportunity to present managed services, a GeoDB and xcube for self-serving LPIS and Copernicus data within the Euro data cube environment. Let's keep things simple is kind of our overall headline. Now we were developing tools for this Euro data cube, and the rationale was that this comes from the website that we wanted to open the ability or simplify the ability to combine satellite and feature data and geospatial data. So that's the rationale, and the sharing was another one that has been mentioned before in the presentations even. So in the tool development, we focused very much on keeping things simple, which that was what we're trying to achieve. And so we wanted to generate a configuration-less access to geospatial resources. So just in Python scripting, very simple, couple of lines, and you have access to the resources, or maybe even managing them. So we also aimed at providing access with a user management aspect as well, and obviously a good performance in publishable and shareable resources. At the beginning, we focused a bit, so we had to start off somehow. Particularly with the GeoDB, we started with machine learning people with an LPIS use case, and they obviously are focusing on scripting in Jupyter Notebooks. So that's what you're going to see in my presentation. To provide such an infrastructure, we created a Python client in GeoPandas to access a Postgres database in the background that's been served through a RESTful API. just a technical term, but people that know what the RESTful APIs know what I mean. And also talking about RESTful APIs, we do offer also setting up a GeoServer instance to serve geospatial data as a WMTS service. We also provide access to the xcube tools family. I'm going to show a bit about that a bit later on, and simple access to Copernicus data sources. And all of that is offered as a service components. The GeoDB, as I said before, is a Postgres database where somebody can set up collections and process data into these collections, and then grant access to the public, for instance, that then use the Python client to access that collection through the RESTful API. Yeah, as I said, the major aim here, one of the major aims here was to simplify a bit, so this combination of satellite and geospatial data. In this case, using particularly the xcube tools package that Brockmann Consult has developed as well. What you see on the left-hand side is sort of the example data we always use. This left-hand side is a subset of the Sentinel Hub data to a certain time step, and it's a bit sort of southwest of Ljubljana because it's a data set that Anja has given from Sentinel Hub has given to us. And on the right-hand side, you see an example of the same extent of same VBox, but of geospatial data, the LPIS data set of land use data. So in the top right corner, you see these green areas. That's Ljubljana. So when I'm daring to give you a wee demonstration how this actually works. I hope you can see it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this information out of Sentinel Hub, the satellite data, as well as loading LPIS data out of the geoDB, and then rasterize the geoDB data and also do a combination by a masking process. The first step is I'm loading data from, that's the very top bottom, I don't want to do that. I'm loading data from Sentinel Hub. So I'm setting the bounding box and spatial resolution, then I'm configuring the cube that's coming out of the Sentinel Hub data with the spatial resolution and also time range and the time period. And once I've done that, I can open the cube. It's now going to the Sentinel REST Hub API, and then I can plot my results. So this is the same as the image before. Top right corner, Ljubljana satellite imagery of the band. I think I've used band 04 for this particular plot. Now, the next step is I'm loading the data from the geoDB. I'm using the EOX hub. So I've got a Jupyter hub provided by EOX. So that does mean in this case that the access credentials to the geoDB have been set in the background. So I just load the geoDB Python client and tell it and ask it who I am, and it tells me I'm geoDB test 99. So I'm in, and you can, and I'm looking at or can now query data out of that collection. Now I'm querying using a bound box, so the same bounding box on the top to query information out of a land use table. So this is exactly the same information as in the previous slide. And now I can use that information to rasterize. So xcube offers several sort of convenience functions. It offers here rasterize features, convenience functions where I can pass in the cube I've created from the Sentinel Hub data and pass in the features I want to rasterize, and then I get the output will be a cube with this feature data in it. In that case, the RABA ID, which is the land use ID. And once I've done that, I can then plot that rasterized feature. And as you can see, it's the same image, but it's rasterized now. It's now a raster cube, if you want so, but it has the same dimension coordinates than the Sentinel Hub cube. So you can now, of course, start combining data. And the last thing I wanted to show you is masking by a feature. So I'm querying just one single feature out of the geoDB, out of that LPIS data example. So this is a polygon from the top left corner. And I can use now that polygon and pass it into the cube as well. Again, convenience functions by xcube, and mask this by this one. And the output is a subset of the Sentinel Hub data of the band 04 that lies within this polygon. So coming back, so that brings me to the conclusions. I think it's a bit hard to present everything we did in 10 minutes, but I think we love this idea of combining, providing something to share and combine and and all these things. So that really drove us quite a lot. And we do believe that the GDB and xcube infrastructure supports the combination of satellite and feature data very well. We also think that you really get a very swift and simple access to geospatial resources. We do build also on existing standards like xArray or GeoPandas, so that the learning curve with learning these tools shouldn't be all too steep. Also, we offer all those tools as a service as well, and we also all these tools also. These services also offer an access to a growing selection of Copernicus services data as well, because we are kind of, I've shown the example of Sentinel Hub data, but we are also increasing that to CCI data, C3S, 3S, and so on. But that's, Bente, thank you very much. That's my presentation, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much, Helge. Do we have any questions to Helge and the data cubes? It was quite a detailed demonstration you have. Thank you for that. I have to admit I didn't follow it, but I'm sure there are people in the audience who would understand that. And it's great to see, even if you don't understand it, if that's my opinion, it's great to see that, you know, how it can be done and how it is done. Let me see. If I have some questions directly, there's an interesting dialogue going on in the chat right now, so thank you very much. But I think that particular topic, I would like to put that in the Q&A where we can have a more deeper discussion around it, and then we finish the technology here. Yeah. Okay, yes, so I think we go straight to you and the traffic lights, Stefan.
Okay, I will start to share my screen now.
Yep.
Okay, one moment. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes, we can, Stefan.
Okay, great. So, my name is Stefan Brandt. Hello again. I developed LPvis, an open source web app for visualizing traffic light maps that combine data cube services to visualize the results from machine learning. And there's also a demo app online at lpvis.hub.ux.at, and I think we can also post that link into the chat later, and you can try it out yourself. To show you a bit the context and to locate LPvis in there, inside of the checks by monitoring pipeline, we start with the satellite data and we extract time stacks. This is the so-called data cube. Then we intersect with agricultural pulses, just like Helge has shown you before. We have then the signals that are used as an input for machine learning, and then LPvis comes into play. It is a tool to visualize the results from the machine learning as in traffic light symbology. So green is conforming to the declaration of the farmer with high confidence, and red is not conforming, and yellow parcels must be checked manually. Here's an overview of the pipeline. What LPvis does is LPvis visualizes charts of vegetation indices. In the demo, we use the NDVI, which are directly generated from the time stacks. And then LPvis also visualizes a traffic light map, which is the result from machine learning. I will now show you what the web app actually looks like. It has a set of features which I will go through now. On the left, you can see highlighted in red, there's an overlay swipe that lets you compare agricultural parcels on the right and physical blocks on the left, which comes in handy if you want to compare the extents of these land units. You could, for example, also compare the agricultural parcels with cadastral parcels, for example. There is a ground truth lens that you can use to peek through the traffic light map to ground truth data, such as orthophotos. You can switch it on and off whenever you want to see what is actually behind the traffic light symbology. Then there is a data table that you can open to look at the attributes of some of the parcels that you selected previously. So you click on some of the parcels and then they show up in this data table. And you can also export the data and all the fields that are connected to a particular parcel or to the parcels that you selected. There's a handy overview map in the lower right corner that helps you to not get lost among all the green and yellow and red parcels. And there's a place finder that lets you zoom directly to a location in your map. You can enter any place and directly go to that place and visualize it. And last but not least, there's a time stack sidebar. This sidebar can be collapsed or can be open, and you can click on a parcel and then directly retrieve the time stack and visualize it as a chart. And when you hover over the chart, you can visualize specific data points. You can go over it and it tells you the exact date of that data point, of that sample, and tells you the average over that specific parcel and the maximum and the minimum value of the pixels in that parcel. As for the technology underlying this, LPIS is an open source web app that is licensed under the MIT license, so it's very permissive. You can simply take the code, it's hosted on GitHub, and modify it and redistribute it. It's based on leaflet web maps and D3 visualization technology, which are two JavaScript libraries. And the LPIS demo that we are using now is powered by EuroDataCube services. Thank you for listening to my presentation. You can try LPIS out at lpis.hub.ux.at.
Thank you very much, Stefan. And right away, why don't you post that link directly in the chat so people can get access to it immediately. And that goes for actually for all of you who have had links in your presentation. I think it would be very useful for the audience to have it directly here in the chat since we have this option. Thank you, Stefan. So
you're welcome.
With that, we have gone through the entire presentations and painted this image of what's going on with respect to cap area monitoring and the use of technology, Copernicus and technology. Now, we were interrupted when we did the tour de table. So before we start on the Q&A, I would like to give the floor to you, Aušrius, to introduce yourself. We just missed that opportunity to get to know you a little bit more.
Okay, sorry, like always, some problems just before presentation, and now I haven't for half an hour. So yeah, my name is Aušrius Kučinskas from National Ping Agency in Lithuania. I'm responsible for on-the-spot checks, remote sensing, and the work of the territorial units on the controls. And also we are developing and implementing the use of Sentinel in our casual work.
Excellent. And I also forgot to introduce myself a little bit more. So I'm in this context, I'm a part of the EO for Agri Consortium. This is a Horizon 2020 project. I'm also, in this context, I'm working for Plan for All Association. In addition to that, I'm deeply involved in Earth observation in general. I have been a member of the group on Earth observation community since its infancy. I am a member of the program board, so I can of GEO right now. And I think we can say that with that, we have both the payment agencies, we have the technology, those who are transferring Earth observations from data to information, and Earth observation. So we basically cover a lot of the value chain here. Now, we had an interesting discussion in the chat that I would like to come back to. So some of you participated in that, but I'm sure not everybody got that. So I think we can spend some time on that. But before we start, Gerhard, is there anything else you have picked up that you would say that we should dive into in the Q&A session?
Not directly that I would have a question to ask the audience. I think we have made a nice arc from very general considerations of the issue down to very detailed technological implementation proposals. A round picture from my point of view. This would be probably a question to the audience, whether information has been, let's say, spread nicely so that everybody could benefit from the presentations, or whether there was too much of information or too little of information. So this would be of my interest. And yes. Furthermore, I would also be interested. I see that we have 71. Now it's 66. We had up to over 70 participants in the webinar. I would also like to get a feeling about the percentage of how many paying agencies are.
Oh, we know it's about 60%, Gerhard.
Do we have a poll result already?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
so 60% from the payment agency, so which is great. We are very happy with that. And then the second place was public organizations. Then we have quite a bit of industry and also some research and science. So, but the most of the audience here is those are from the payment agencies. So, but now I think there is one quick question for you, Helge. You answered in the poll in the chat here, but I think we can bring that up to the audience, and that was the colors used for LPIS map that you presented from blue to red. What the colors used for?
Those are classes that are land use classes. So for further information, you need to ask this Anja, but she's not here, I think.
Okay, so it was a legend that were described in more detail somewhere. Okay. If you find a link to that with more information, please provide it in the chat.
Yes.
And I have one question for clarification. I think that was you, Aušrius. I think you mentioned the DSs, and you are that's the Copernicus DSs, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I did the correct thing because I posted the link with more information about what the DSs is. Not everybody are quite fluent in all of the acronyms, ourselves included. And in Geo there are 2 DSs. So now coming to I think it was grassing. Let me see where we had that. Yes, so it was Bastian. Thank you, Bastian, for starting this. And thank you for the compliment. Very nice presentation, Bastian says. It sounds almost too easy. But how about problems like detecting grazing, for example? And we had some comments by the audience here that Cornelius is onto something. He is developing a cattle detection with high-resolution satellite data. I assume that's something you have to pay for, not Copernicus. You can comment on that. That would be great, Cornelis. And Benjamin is asking with which pixel size. Yes, so it would be good to have those informations from you if you have them. And yeah, so well, yes, I think we can start with that. Anybody here in the audience care to comment on the grazing issue? Nobody.
But I would be interested if Pavel can elaborate a bit more on his remark that he made in the comment, is that it's longer term affecting measures.
What do you mean longer term?
I would be interested to know about this. So Pavel mentioned regarding grazing, we are thinking of treated probably not as an isolated event, but as a process affecting, preserving in longer term the land cover characteristic, and so on. So if he can elaborate on this, I think would be very interesting for many in the audience.
And Pavel, if you have, and all of you, if you have links that shed some light on this issue, that would be appreciated as well. That might be an efficient way of answering in the chat. And Cosmin, so Cosmin is, Bastian is asking a question to Cosmin. Will you implement this in Sen4Cap? And what was it that he was that the grazing thing? No. Okay. So sorry for this. It's too many things going. So Cosmin is making this comment. Bastian, we are doing some tests in Wallonia to detect mowing and grazing events. It's not easy, see possible, to quantify, if possible, I guess, to quantify, but with multi-yearly data sets, I'm confident to be able to identify these activities, at least that's minimum agricultural activity. Okay, and then the question is, will this be, from Bastian, will this be implemented in Sen4Cap? That's one of the projects. I think you mentioned that, Grega, did you? Yeah. And Cosmin is answering, once it will be validated, I hope in a few months, the algorithms will be freely available, which is awesome. And then Benjamin, the pixel size is 50 centimeters for cattle detection. So we got an answer on that pixel question. And here is this is what you with the Pavel Milano from JRC regarding grazing, especially on permanent grassland. We in JRC, this is what you mentioned, Grega, right? Are thinking to treat it probably not as an isolated event, but as a process affecting, presenting in longer term the land cover characteristics of grassland. For example, if grazing is absent, it would make the grassland in longer terms looking more as a semi-natural vegetation. Yes, indeed. And this is also something that we are struggling with in Norway, because a general problem is that due to the lack of grazing, the vegetation is, the land is covered with, scrubs and growing. Oh, this is my bad English. It's covered with vegetation that shouldn't be there. So it's better that it's being used, and this is something that you can use satellite data to define.
What I can see from the dialogue or from in the chat, there seems to be a lot of interest related to the grazing story. Thomas Laliska from the Lithuanian paying agency, Lucy from the Czech paying agency, they're entering into a dialogue now. That seems to me it would deserve actually a dedicated meeting. Maybe this is something that we can offer as well on this subject. What do you think?
I think this sounds like a great follow-up, and I think we already have some suspects that we would ask to be presenting. It looks like Cosmin is one of them, and Pavel also. Benjamin Cornelius. There are several interested in this topic, so both from a user perspective, I guess, and both in terms of experts, which is what we would look for. Now I have a more from Benjamin, a more coming back. So we will follow up on that. I think that's a good idea. Gerhard, you and I, we will follow up on that, right? In the context of EO for Agri, for sure. Yeah, done. And all you need to do is to follow EO for Agri or any of us. We will provide you more contact information in the chat before we end this webinar. So you will be able to follow us on Twitter to get information. For instance, I personally publish a lot of what is going on my Twitter account with links and everything. Okay, so
there was a question to Stefan coming from Benjamin that I think could be answered quite quickly.
Yeah.
Yes. Can you? Yeah. Could you tell us the question again?
Yeah. So Benjamin is asking how many crop types can be recognized. What about vegetables?
Mm-hmm. Actually, LPvis itself visualizes green, red, and yellow, and it is independent from any of the other steps that come before in the pipeline. But for this specific demo that we have online and this specific question, we would have to ask our data science specialist here in EUX, and he could elaborate further on it. Maybe also Gerhard can give more details about it.
Well, also I can share our experience from being agency. So we are concentrating on 11 the biggest crops declared in the parcels, which covers more about 90% of all declared area. And for basic payment scheme, you don't need to know the exact crop which is there. You need just to know if it is arable land, permanent grass land, or permanent crops. And just you need the exact crop for crop diversification. But you also, you usually don't need the smallest. You just need the main. So I think it's a good idea not to focus on all the possible, but just on the most, which is covering the most declared area.
Great. And Gerhard?
Yeah, no, I have nothing to add there. I'm also not so deep in this thing, but I don't really know how many different crop types we are distinguishing. In the Austrian case, we are working with the Austrian paying agencies on the consulting them and as a contractor for the Austrian situation, and I honestly don't know how big our confusion matrix is, and so something to be added later maybe. But I continue following the chat, and it seems to me again, and I'm getting even from Bastian a confirmation that we should follow up the discussion on the grassland and on the grazing events. Now, of course, there are is an organization set up where paying agencies can communicate among each other, like the Pantarei organization. But it seems to me that a mechanism like an online chat or an online seminar could probably an additional good mechanism for some kind of ad hoc topics that can be addressed by paying agencies and discussed. But maybe then in a format that people can also speak up and not choosing the subject so widely like we do right now, but focusing more on specific questions so that we have a smaller number of experts that want to share their ideas and discussions.
Yes. Absolutely. So we will follow up, and we will post more of the links. I just too many multitasking for me now. So if EOX and Sinergise, if you can also provide your contact information in the chat, that would be great. I just posted a Twitter link to EO for Agri. because we will announce. So Gerhard, to continue, well, of course, I can do. We have all of the people here in this webinar. We have the email, so I can send a message to them where we can invite them to sign up for the next webinar, even though we don't know exactly when it is. So that's one option. I think we can do that if nobody is objecting heavily. It needs to be a heavy object. No, I think that that is one way to keep this audience that we have collected. Yeah, thank you. That your email addresses and also your social media addresses, because we are, well, for those, some of you are following on social media, some of you are in other channels, some of you are using emails. I want to cover all of those channels because we are using different. Okay, but that's really a great outcome. Did I skip one? Did you guys see any of the other questions? I think we have.
Well, I see the question of Perez Alvaro, which is even opening a much wider topic, the topic of audits. And again, something that I think we cannot here in the given amount of time and expertise in the panel really answer, but it seems to me like another signal that communication among paying agencies should be somehow facilitated, and we could probably provide a platform for that.
Absolutely. So with all these payment agencies here, definitely this is where, and those from the payment agency in this very webinar obviously share a common interest in the topics. So I think we will use this community and communicate with our on future plans. How about that? So for covering different, diving deeper into other subjects related to this one. Yeah. So what one of the biggest problem is also, I'm reading it out in its entirety, Gerhard. So Perez Alvaro, thank you very much. One of the biggest problems is also that as a paying agency, it is the lack of orientations concerning the DG Agri audits units. I mean, it will be useful for the payment agencies to have a preliminary version of the main key and ancillary controls concerning a CBM. I'm not sure what that is, in order to develop good systems. Have you got any information on this? Will we collect some information on this in EO for Agri, Gerhard? Yes.
That's the subject, the objective of the EO for Agri project.
Yes.
And we have also the participants from the paying agencies or the consultants of the paying agencies. So we could have some brainstorming on this question and try to come up with questions and directly relay them back to those who are asking.
Yes. I think that's a good one. Thank you for that, Paris. I have one more question. I have a question now concerning the data cubes. So you mentioned Euro. You showed and demonstrated on Euro data cube. Will the same concept be applicable on other data cubes? I mean, in geo context of geo, we know that there are different data cubes services around. So will it be applicable on other data cubes?
I can comment on that. I mean, so yes. So if for the data cubes to be able to be used here, they would just need to provide some basic functionality. Like one of them is the OGC compliance services, which all of them do. Then we need to have a time series functionality so that you get some statistics over the polygon. I believe that let's say the main few of them that are out there, like Open Data Cube, they are going that direction. The question more is whether they will be, offered as a managed service rather than the technology, right? Many of the data cubes really are there just as a technology, and then you need to deploy them yourself and work with that. So, but in general, I think there is quite a bit of like synergy in terms of what the data cubes offer. And most of them can provide these functionalities should be able to provide this functionality. But at the moment, there are a few which are operational yet.
Right. So you just handed me another question that was thinking of asking how much expertise is necessary in order to be able to use this technology?
Yeah, depends what is now this technology, right?
Yeah.
If you want to operate DataCube, I would say a lot. Like you need to understand the ICT, clouds, remote sensing, and so on. If you want to use the DataCube, not that much. Still, you need to understand the remote sensing knowledge. You need to understand the machine learning if you want to use it in the aspect that we are talking about today, right? Now, if you want to use the markers generated by the Euro DataCube, then you don't need to know. I mean, you need to understand the markers, but I believe that all the participants of this understand this very well. And everything beyond that is just a part of the local policy. So yeah, in that respect, not much.
Right. So there are different levels, because I can imagine, and having worked for not for a payment agency, but for the Norwegian Mapping Authority, so a governmental organization, I know this question about, how much in-house competence should you have, and how much should you and would be advisable to outsource. And I imagine that this is common. Aušrius, can you maybe comment on this as well, how you are thinking about that in your organization?
Well, maybe first I want to comment to Cosmin question, if I may. Yeah, because Cosmin mentioned for me that perfectly right for the most cases, but there are situations more complicated with farmers and parcels used in different ways. Yeah, so we won't avoid going to the field in like 100 of the cases, because for some parcels, especially for vegetables, and there are a couple support opportunities, and yeah, you need to check exactly what it is, and if there are small parcel or even a average one, it could be not easy to recognize from satellite sentinels data. So we cannot avoid not to go to the field. And yes, Bente, could you repeat the question before?
It's the considerations related to whether or not you will have the competence in-house in the payment agency with respect to the data cubes. And so I asked Grega, what type of competence is necessary, and then he explained that some was complicated and required quite a bit of expertise that probably, well, this is my assumption then, probably will be not in the mandate of a payment agencies, but some of it, if you use some part of the data cube, some components of it, you can actually have that in-house. So those considerations is in general, I think.
Yeah, so for development of algorithms, well, it's better to outsource, because you need some highly very deep and narrow competencies in the pages, but it's not necessary to have it. But you need some competencies in the house for running it. Because as on the survey, the answers, and on my presentation, and I think if I remember well on the Grega's presentation, well, it's we are thinking to run these algorithms in the house, but how they are developed, well, not necessary to know for us, just like paying agencies. We need the result.
If I may also give an answer to this from my perspective, and being also part of the Euro DataCube project, I would like to introduce the concept that is in the Euro DataCube present. We have a marketplace there, and this marketplace shows, so I've posted the URL, and if you go there, you find in the marketplace kind of pre-canned example Jupyter notebooks, which actually demonstrate how the data cubes can be accessed. So we have seen an example from Helge, who presented the combined access to Sentinel Hub and to the geoDB, and we have a whole number of Jupyter Notebook examples there, where somebody can go and just use this as a documentation on how, for example, perform a land cover classification, a crop type classification over a particular area of interest. So there are predefined getting started notebooks that people can just use. And they also don't need to install anything at home at their infrastructure, but they can just use the workspace which is provided by the EuroDataCube marketplace, and run their Jupyter notebooks for them privately, in their private area, so to say. And there is even a free of charge plan to get started with limited resources. So for the first experiments. So it's worthwhile to go and visit the marketplace in the EuroDataCube and see the examples there, and take them as documentation on how you can use in practical terms the EuroDataCube services.
Excellent. So now I provided you a link to EO for Agri, where you will have more information about the outcome of this. So the slides and so on, that was some of the questions were related to that. Slides and recording will be definitely on EO for Agri. I also, so coming back to the data cubes, there is the Group on Earth Observation, have an annual symposium, and this will of course this year be online, but in the week of the 15th to the 18th of June, there will be a program. The symposium will be there, and one of the sessions there is about data cubes. It's new technology and data cubes. So that might be interesting for those of you in the payment agencies and the technologists here as well, to go and learn more about from a global perspective. Let me see. Yeah, Stefan, you have the EuroDataCube marketplace. And yes, Aušrius, is there, so coming back to your results from the survey.
Yes.
Is there anything that you would like more information about from the payment agencies?
Well, just I can stress some things because during my presentation I faced some problems and you didn't hear me well.
Yeah.
Now, I can face stress some things. That it's big progress in 1 year that Central is using for LPIS update, and it's also providing. It's also a help tool for the farmer. For example, to draw the borders exact, and to draw a borders for declaration. Also, we see that all the paying agencies that completed the questionnaire is using Sentinel-2 optical data. So 100%. So if we extrapolate these numbers like to the whole paying agencies in Europe, so we see in the picture that everybody is using Sentinel-2, and from 2019 it's a big increase of using Sentinel-1 radar data between paying agencies. Yes. What I want to stress, another thing that we are talking a lot about monitoring, about Sentinels, but we are still in the big picture not implementing it like 60 or 80% of the paying agencies of the countries, because we are still facing some issues with small parcels, with complex monitorable criteria of eligibility, doubts about future audits approach. So there are also still some obstacles which are not letting us to implement it just right now, in 2020. So that
if I also may ask some more information about the EuroDataCube, we have not yet really emphasized it, but the example that Helge presented to us showed that LPIS data can be hosted on the EuroDataCube. And so I would consider this as an invitation to paying agencies to think about whether they want to use the mechanisms of the EuroDataCube to also have their LPIS data hosted and shared as a mechanism to share the full data, not only the metadata, but to share the full data. So the EuroDataCube project is open for paying agencies who want to publish their LPIS data via this mechanism. And I'm sure Grega can add more things in this respect. And the second thing I wanted to mention, also related to the EuroDataCube, is the fact that PlanetScope data are being made available. They are commercial, 3 to 4 meter resolution data for the small parcels part. Also, there is a mechanism already in place where Planet data can be acquired over areas of interest in order to fulfill the small parcels monitoring needs. So we are trying to move together this heterogeneous data set of LPIS data, Copernicus data, Planet data, all in one house, so to say, to be accessed via the service interfaces of EuroDataCube.
Well, also, I want to add one thing about OpenIX data. So, as I mentioned on at the very end of my presentation, we are opening our LPIS data on our mobile geotag application, and we have a great cooperation with Grega. We also put their Sentinel hub layers, and it's updating every 5 days. So you can imagine that every farmer, every citizen in Lithuania could easily download free mobile application and could see whatever is going on in his field from satellites. So this is one of the examples with cooperation with Sinergise, Grega, and how it could be useful for the farmers and society as well.
Great, because that was one of the questions I was going to ask this audience, and thank you for staying on. Is LPIS data free in your country, in your, what you call it, county, or because it might be different in, for instance, in Germany, I know you have your own government in Bavaria. So
territory, call it territory.
Yeah, territory. So is the LPIS data free? Because yes or no in the chat would be interesting to see, because Lithuania, obviously, you are demonstrating a very good example. It's not only free, but you make it also easily accessible to just about anybody, right? Through your mobile app.
Yeah, it's just anybody. So far, we have 6,000 unique consumers of that mobile application, but some kind of marketing, and we will have at least twice bigger, because also we are implementing with Sentinel data with Sentinel view just only a couple months ago, and so far we didn't do a big marketing, PR probably in English, I don't know exactly.
Yeah, promoted it. And may I ask, so obviously it's interesting, LPIS data is used for more than the payment agencies, and for the that functionality in the payment agencies. Who else would be interested in the LPIS data? I mean, is there something that would inspire the government to release the LPIS data if they are not released?
Well, since LPIS data primarily describe the geometries of the parcels, this is of course also of interest to value-added services, like, for example, precision farming applications. So, and since the LPIS data are being updated by the authority and in frequent intervals, so this is a reliable kind of official data set that can also be used to a whole range of agricultural applications, not necessarily connected with monitoring from satellite.
Excellent, and thank you so much for those who are who are telling us about the LPIS data. Sabina says Bavaria not, so I used the Bavaria as an example. Bastian, not application data in Sweden. In Austria, yes. In Poland, no. In Czechia, just LPIS data reference parcels. Lucy, please check the LPIS data into availability info with Pavel Milano, DGDRC, EX data interoperability project. Okay, thank you, Lucy. Jukka from Finland, it's free for scientific use. Partially in Germany, Schleswig-Holstein, says Benjamin. and yeah, Paris is in Wallonia, Belgium. And that's, yes, anonymized version is available for for each citizen. And Pavel Milano on LPIS data sharing and provisioning data cube. Any issues observed with? That's another question. Okay, so thank you for the LPIS. Keep them coming. If you have information, keep them coming. Meanwhile, we will ask a question from Pavel Milanov on LPIS data sharing on provisioning data cube. Any issues observed with metadata and semantics? Any interoperability issues? I love this question. Yes. Anybody care to answer?
This is a question to Grega, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously there are, but we on purpose didn't want to go there because I don't think that the data being harmonized is the main issue that users are facing. I think the main issue is simply that the data are not accessible, or they're not accessible in a, let's say, machine-readable way. When the users, and with users here, I'm referring to, I don't know, data scientists and machine learning and the application developers and so on, each of them will use the data in a different way. So for them, all this metadata and the semantics, I mean, they are not harmonized, right? They don't have the same needs. And therefore, I mean, what we believe is that they will put an effort and they will merge the data in a way that it fits them. And as long as they have the data available. Once we have all the data, or let's say majority of the data available in one place, I think then it makes sense to put an effort in trying to harmonize it. And I mean, you have an INSPIRE directive which should solve this, right?
Yeah.
And for those, the governmental agency that will follow the INSPIRE directive, this will be, I mean, off the shelf. But as mentioned, from my point of view, I think it's more important to simply make the data available, in a way that it can be used, meaning that the licensing is okay as well. And then everything else is like much lower priority than that.
Yeah, but the metadata, you need to have the metadata.
Yeah. I mean, the metadata comes along with the data, and I mean, each of the people who are using the data also have an access to the metadata. Yeah, this will be in different languages. This will have different information, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
But again, yes, you need to put some effort into making it useful. If there are no data whatsoever, then you can't do anything at all.
No. So a follow-up question for you, Grega.
And also to get the regular updates. This is also, of course, because LPIS is not a static data set.
Yeah.
And versions and stuff. Are you using APIs to connect then?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, this is very important point. So the Eurodata Cube is an API, right? So to get the data from the Eurodata Cube, we have APIs for everything. But it's a very important point also the other way around, right? To get the data into the data cube, as often as possible, we would like to connect to the APIs because this guarantees that the data will be up to date. If the data is available through, I don't know, a download of some zip file, it's not ideal, but we go that way to download that zip file and convert it. But yeah, the APIs are, I would say, the best possible means to share the data.
Yeah, and I will plug there the OpenSearch API. So it's based on as an OGC standard. Yeah. And we have it's also made for Earth observations. So but here it's a combination of positioning data, so geospatial, time, geospatial, and Earth observations, and for many governments they are using CCAN. So the next GEOS project, another Horizon 2020 project, has developed a OpenSearch API for a plugin for extension to CCAN, which I think can be very useful in this context. So.
I think the subject on LPIS would again deserve another channel to have the specialists talking about it. I mean, we know that in every Mars conference, there's always a dedicated session on the subject of LPIS sharing. We are trying to pass the message that there are activities ongoing. So the need for LPIS sharing on the data cube was actually expressed by people like Hugo de Croo from DG Environment, was expressed by people in the DG Agri, and the European Space Agency was actually putting money on the table to make this possible. So we are offering LPIS data sharing platform, which is actually desired or featured in the names of the named agencies. So if a paying agency agrees to bring their LPIS data to the table, the data will not disappear somewhere in a data hole like the Euro Data Cube, but it will be broadened in terms of access. It's just a facilitator for paying agencies to bring their LPIS data along. And of course, as the subject of today's seminar, it's very convenient to have these LPIS data right at the same spot where you have also the satellite data, and can process them in a joint way.
Exactly, and that's why we also end up by talking about the nitty-gritty details like metadata and APIs and so on, because it's the combination that we are talking about here, to combine satellite data in this case with different types of in situ and auxiliary data. So and there's a lot of efforts on all, at all ends, if you like. I think there's another question. Otherwise, I'm looking to end the webinar. Perez is asking again. Yes, an autonomized version. No, that was he was telling us about the LPIS data.
Yeah, just also I want to add that our open LPIS data also are without any personal things.
Right. Yeah.
Just like wrote down on the chat.
Exactly. So I think that with the Inspire, that Grega also briefly mentioned, that we have the Inspire directive. So for governmental organization in Europe, at least, it should be the sharing of this data should be facilitated already. But it's of course a technical. As the technology develops, you also need to update the implementation of the Inspire directive. Which is, by the way, something we are working on in this hackathon. So this webinar itself is actually a very special edition or a special segment of the Dubrovnik Inspire hackathon. So just so you know that, and it's about sharing these hackathons. The Inspire hackathons has been going on since 2016. It's an integral part of the Inspire conference, which is normally an annual event. And we are discussing issues like this. And we work in the Inspire hackathons, we work on helping enhancing the use of Copernicus data, on implementation of the Inspire directive, implementation of interoperability, which has been a part of this discussion here, and of course also geo and use of geos. So, and citizen science, which is can all be part of a solution of the discussion today. Yes. Anything else, Gerhard? You are sort of the headmaster of this event.
It was extremely interesting, and thank you very much for moderating this event, Bente. And we have plans for next, the more focused topics to be also discussed in a format like this. Yes. Thank you very much to everybody, and I think we have done a good job today.
Yes, thank you so much to all the speakers. Excellent presentations, very useful. Thank you so much. And I will also thank you to the audience who has been so engaged and answering our polls, being active in the chat. And yes, the chat will be saved. So all the information you provide, I see that you are still providing emails. Those will be collected. We get a copy of the chat here. So thank you so much, and see you in the next webinar.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thanks a lot.
Bye bye. Thanks, Bente, for organizing this.
Bye bye.